starting this week, this Saturday, Red River, Oklahoma, Texas. This one's going to be massive. Obviously for Texas, they're already on the bubble. Their back is against the wall. They lose to Ohio State to begin the year. Obviously, last weekend's loss in the swamp at Florida, disastrous. Offensive line played bad. The quarterback played bad. Everybody played bad for Texas. And now they're behind the 8 ball. And Oklahoma is the team that is the undefeated top 10, top 5 team with maybe their quarterback coming back. Are you hearing this? The Chipotle rumor could be true. John Mateer pushing to get back on the field. I can't wait to see how that all plays out. But from a Texas perspective, this one's obvious. This one is a must-win for them in Red River from preseason number 1. If they lose this game, they'll be out of the playoff picture. I don't think they have enough left on their schedule to get themselves obviously back to Atlanta or even back in the mix. Because as we know, folks, 9-3 is likely not going to cut it. I know everybody wants to talk about some of these schedules that are so difficult. And yes, there are a few that are very difficult with a lot of ranked opponents left on them. But when we get down to it, and it's a bottom line business, do we really think 9-3 is going to get into the college football playoff? I doubt it. I think it's an outside chance for a team like maybe OU, maybe, but it certainly would not be available for Texas, so they have to win. Oklahoma, they can make a huge statement with this win, even though Texas is struggling. Can't wait to see if Mateer plays. And this is going to really set up the whole back half of the season for each of these teams in an obvious way. So that's the first game, Red River, this Saturday down in Dallas. Next week, October 18th, week 8 in the college football season, USC at Notre Dame. This one's going to be massive. Now, I know USC plays Michigan this week, but regardless of outcome in that game, those two teams would largely still be alive because they would only have a second loss, and they've got enough left on their schedule, in particular with Michigan playing Ohio State late and USC having Notre Dame on the schedule, plus a trip to Eugene later in the year, where if, even unlikely, but if they were to win out, they would probably be fine. But this one is most important. Why? Because USC could really set themselves up for a stretch run where they're competing for a playoff spot, and Notre Dame is in the same boat that Texas is in, where they can't afford a loss. So Lincoln Riley is sitting here, and I know that was a disappointing loss to Illinois. I get it. They were confident going into that game. They had some injuries up front. Their safety, Kamari Ramsey, doesn't play. They lose the game in close fashion. But everything is still ahead of them. They've got Michigan in their house this week, and then this one is the monster, though. And that's why it's one of the 10 games that I think is going to shape the season. Every game is an elimination game for Notre Dame. Every single one. Look at what they've got going on. And this is the one that I point out because for Marcus Freeman and the Golden Domers, I think this is going to be the most difficult test of all the tests throughout the back half of this season. October 18th, they host USC. They're going to have at Boston College. Boston College is 1-4. They play Navy, and yeah, Navy's undefeated, but remember, they handled Navy last year 51-14. They go to Pitt. Maybe that's a pitfall, pun intended, obviously. But Pitt is 3-2. Syracuse is 3-3. Stanford is 2-3. Like, it's not a terribly difficult last 5 games. So this USC game next weekend is vital for them. 1, they've already got the 2 losses, and 2, they're going to need to put on a good performance, maybe even from a beauty pageant perspective, in terms of getting in as a 10-2. So that one's going to be massive right there, and that's week 8. By the way, lots of week 8 games on this list. Next weekend is going to be a massive weekend as it relates to the college football playoff. Another one next weekend, Tennessee at Alabama. This one's going to be a monster. Beware right now the Vols lurking. Their only loss is that overtime loss to Georgia. They played well enough to win that game, had a field goal to win it at the end. Josh Heupel has done an incredible job. Joey Aguilar has been a great fit for them. Love their wide receivers on the outside. They've done a heck of a job this year. They've only, like I said, got that one loss, and a win would put them right in the playoff picture. Tennessee's toughest remaining games, not an easy schedule by any stretch, but their toughest remaining would be this game at Alabama, who is now a top 10 team. They're hosting Oklahoma. That's a monster, obviously. They've got to go down to Florida, and that's obviously a game where anything can happen because of the inconsistencies of the Florida Gators. And then they've got Vandy on November 29th. Those are kind of the big games for Tennessee. Can they get to 10-2? I mean, listen, if they were able to beat Alabama in that game, that would go a long way. And then Alabama will either really solidify their spot as a favorite in the SEC, or they're going to be right on the bubble after that game. So a massive game for Kalen DeBoer, Ty Simpson. I still think that they're going to need to get more out of their run game so that they're not so reliant on their passing game. If you get into these matchups, and this one's obviously at home, so that would favor them because they're not quite as good on the road. They got to go on the road here to Missouri this week. But Bama is right there. It's right there. And that game is going to go a long way for Bama hosting Tennessee next week on Week 8. Another Week 8 game, October 18th. Texas Tech at Arizona State. This one's going to be a monster. Tech can really separate itself in the Big 12 because you're starting to see now there's only a few teams that are undefeated in the Big 12 in terms of conference play. You've got Houston undefeated, or not Houston, excuse me. You've got BYU undefeated. They've got to play Utah coming up. They've got to play Texas Tech. So we'll see what happens with them. But Arizona State is the sneaky one because remember, they were the playoff team last year. So Joey McGuire and Texas Tech have a chance to really stamp this season if they could beat Kenny Dillingham's team at Arizona State. Dillingham, they lose that game at Mississippi State earlier this year. And if they could get back in the driver's seat as an undefeated in-conference beating what we now think is the favorite, well, they'd be right there again. So, again, this one is going to tell us everything we need to know about the Big 12 favorite, which we think is Texas Tech, if Arizona State is going to put themselves back onto that level, and whether this conference could potentially get a second team. Also in Week 8, by the way, Utah and BYU. So, everything's going to shake out Week 8 in the Big 12. That's a huge one, but that Texas Tech-Arizona State game, that's the one we'll really know. We'll really have a quality understanding of what Tech can do to finish this season, to put themselves in a position to be in the college football playoff. Again, I'm a big believer in Texas Tech. That's a good football team. It's a really good football team. They're good in a lot of different areas, and we'll see. That game is, by the way, on Fox. All right, we move on. Week 9. Okay, so now we're to October 25th, and this one is I think a game that if it goes A&M's way and they beat LSU, I'm talking about Texas A&M at LSU, a win in this game for A&M buys them some serious breathing room for the CFP, one, and for potentially getting themselves to Atlanta and playing for the SEC championship. Mike Elko has done a fabulous job. I've been saying this ever since he got hired, folks, is that he is a good fit at A&M. He understands the culture, which is incredibly unique. He's a good football coach. They've been getting better and better and better on the defensive side to the point where the last 2 weeks they've played suffocating defense in SEC play. I like their quarterback, Marcel Reed. I really love Craver, Concepcion on the outside. This is a dangerous team. If they were to go to LSU and beat LSU, that would tell us everything we need to know about their prospects and really likely put them in. Their percentage to get in would go way up. I would say it would be in the 70s, 75% in the CFP, even if they weren't to get to Atlanta at that point. Their toughest games after that one, at Missouri, at Texas to finish the season, and who knows what Texas looks like at that point. Texas, kind of like Penn State, they could fall off and who knows what happens to them. They could lose to Oklahoma. That could be a 3-3 team all of a sudden. So we'll see what happens there. LSU, by the way, could very well be 6-1 and in the top 10 when this game comes around. People have forgotten about them because of that loss to Ole Miss. So Brian Kelly could get himself back in the mix. A loss, there's probably time to get them back in the playoff push, but this one would put them right back in maybe even a driver's seat mode to again get to Atlanta. I still am a firm believer. You get to Indianapolis and play for the Big Ten championship. You get to Atlanta, play for the SEC championship. You're going to be in. And so, an LSU team that could potentially beat Texas A&M. Again, this one is at home. That would be massive for LSU.
Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.